The Pacific Ocean has always been vast, endless, unforgiving, a distance that once protected nations simply by existing. In early 1942, Japan believed that distance made them untouchable. Their cities were safe, their homeland unreachable, their victory inevitable. Then, one morning, bombers appeared over Tokyo, not launched from distant islands, not escorted by long-range fighters, but launched from the deck of a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier deep in enemy-controlled waters. That carrier had a name, USS Hornet, and the mission she carried was never supposed to work. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor burned. Battleships sank. The Pacific Fleet lay shattered. For the first time in its history, the United States was fighting a war it did not choose, and one it was not yet prepared to win. Japan had momentum. Japan had confidence. Japan believed the war would end quickly, but American leadership understood something critical. This war would not be won by defense alone. The United States needed to strike back, not at the edges of the Japanese empire, but at its heart. The problem was simple. Japan was too far away, and American bombers could not reach it, at least not in any conventional way. The idea came from an unlikely place. Army Lieutenant Colonel James "Jimmy" Doolittle. His proposal sounded reckless, almost absurd. Launch Army bombers from a Navy aircraft carrier. The aircraft were B-25 Mitchell medium bombers, planes never designed to operate at sea, never designed to take off from a moving deck, never designed for a one-way mission. There would be no more landing on the carrier, no more return trip, no more margin for error. Once airborne, the crews would fly on toward China or die trying. It was a mission based not on safety, but on necessity. USS Hornet was a Yorktown-class aircraft carrier, commissioned in 1941. Brand new, untested in combat. She was never meant to carry bombers like the B-25. Her flight deck was too short, her elevators too small, her design too conventional. Yet Hornet was chosen for one reason. She could get close. Very close. 16 B-25 bombers were craned onto her flight deck, their wings barely folded, their propellers locked in place. They filled the entire deck. There was no room left for Hornet's own fighters. From that moment on, USS Hornet was no longer just an aircraft carrier. She was a delivery system for desperation. In April 1942, USS Hornet sailed west across the Pacific. She did not sail alone. USS Enterprise escorted her, providing fighters, radar protection, and air cover. The task force moved in silence. Radio discipline was absolute. There would be no warning, no retreat. The closer they came to Japan, the greater the risk became. Japanese patrol boats, reconnaissance aircraft, enemy submarines. If discovered too early, the mission would fail, and failure was not an option. On the morning of April 18, 1942, the task force was spotted. A Japanese picket boat radioed the sighting. They were still hundreds of miles too far away. Launching now meant disaster. Launching later was impossible. There was only one choice: launch immediately. The seas were rough. The deck pitched violently. Winds howled across the bow. And yet, one by one, the B-25s rolled forward. Their takeoff runs were terrifyingly short. Engines screaming, deck crews crouched low, the edge of the ship rushing toward them. And then, each bomber lifted into the air just barely and disappeared into the gray horizon. USS Hornet never recovered a single one. Hours later, bombs fell on Tokyo. Factories burned. Military installations were struck. For the first time, the Japanese homeland was under attack. The physical damage was limited, but the psychological impact was enormous. Japan had been humiliated, its people shocked, its leadership enraged. The myth of invincibility was shattered. The cost was high. Some crews were captured, some were executed, others never returned. But the mission succeeded, not because of destruction, but because of belief. The Doolittle Raid changed everything. Japan diverted forces to homeland defense. Plans were altered. Risks were taken. Just months later, those risks would lead to Midway and disaster for the Imperial Japanese Navy. USS Hornet did not know it then, but she had helped turn the war, not with overwhelming firepower, not with numbers, but with audacity. USS Hornet would not survive the war. Later in 1942, she would be lost in battle, but her legacy was already secure. She proved that innovation matters, that courage can outweigh steel, that sometimes the most powerful weapon in war is the will to attempt the impossible. USS Hornet launched more than bombers that day. She launched hope. She launched doubt into the enemy's mind. She launched the long road to victory. And for one brief moment in history, an aircraft carrier carried the weight of a nation's resolve. That ship was USS Hornet, and this was the raid that changed the war.